Hey guys, good evening. Welcome to the Ironman 70.3 Virginia's Blue Ridge course information, tips and tricks, and Q&A. So, speaking of those Q&As, several of you have submitted your questions over the last several days, couple weeks. So, thank you for that. I'm going to get to the questions there at the end of the presentation. I'm going to get to as many of those as time allows. I know you guys are tapering triathletes, so I want to be respectful of your time and make sure that you all get to bed and can prioritize that sleep that is so critical this week with race day approaching. So, if you have a question that you've not yet submitted, two ways you can do that. If you want to use that go to webinar widget that is there on your screen, there is a questions tab in there. Just enter in your question, and again, I will get to as many of those as I can as time allows this evening. Otherwise, if I do not get to those questions this evening, I will respond to you in the next day or two via email. You can also shoot me an email with your questions. My address is john@tribetriathlon.net. That will be posted at the end if you didn't catch that. So, more than happy to answer any questions that I can or help at least get you moving in the right direction to find the answer to the question that you have. My name is John Mayfield. I am a full time triathlon coach. This is my career, my job, my livelihood. I am passionate about working with athletes, especially those that are racing 70.3 and Ironman racing. That is really my concentration in the sport. And again, I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. I have certifications both from USA Triathlon at level 2 and Ironman U. And I've been privileged to work with hundreds of athletes from first timers to professionals and everyone in between. So, again, I want to just share some of my experience, my education with you so that you can increase your confidence, reduce your stress, and have the best possible experience on race day and throughout race week as well. So, kind of speaking of a couple things as race day approaches. Couple things unique to this race that you need to be aware of, and I would say primarily that is the fact that there are two transition locations. So T1 and T2 are in two different locations. And because of that, this race utilizes bike and run gear bags similar to what you might experience at an Ironman race. So, the way this is going to work is when you go to check in, you'll be provided these bags. They will clearly state, and they're colored, which is your bike gear bag, which is your run gear bag. And you will need to drop those off the day before. So, actually, to be more specific, your bike and your run gear bag will be dropped prior to race day. Your bike is going to be dropped at transition two at the check-in area, and then they are going to be transporting the bikes from the check-in area over to the lake where T1 is. So the space there at the lake is very limited. So that is why they are not requiring the athletes to go and drop off their bikes and set up your transition gear down there, simply because the space is so limited. So to avoid traffic and bottlenecks and all that, you will drop off your bike and they will transport it down there to the lake. And then on race morning, you will bring your bike gear with you. So there will be a bag for that. So your helmet, your cycling shoes, your computer, your nutrition, all of that you will bring with you on race morning. You'll get on the shuttle, head down there to the swim start / T1, get everything set up. And you'll be good to go. As a reminder, you will also have a run gear bag that is going to be dropped prior to the race. That'll have your running shoes, your cap, visor, whatever else you have in there. So be sure to go over all of that. Again, a little bit different than normal. Again, any questions on that, feel free to reach out and we'll get all of that sorted. So, a couple tips for pre-race: stay hydrated. This race is in the summer; it's going to be warm. It is critical that you stay hydrated, and this starts with those days leading into the race. So, my tip here is to just have a uh, water bottle with you at all times in those last several days leading into the race, preferably with some electrolytes in it. So either something pre-made or using an electrolyte tab, something like that. We don't want to overdo it on the calories, the sugar, and all that. but we certainly do want good quality hydration, good quality electrolytes, so that you arrive at the start line topped off so far as that goes. Limit time on your feet. So, as already mentioned, there are several things that you need to do in the day or two leading into the race with dropping your bike off, having the bags already, all that, as well as checking out the village and all those kinds of things. So, just be aware of that. You're going to be spending a decent amount of time on your feet come race day. So, what you really want to do is save your legs for race day. It's great if you have all of those recovery modalities to help. So things like um, compression socks or the air compression boots, those kinds of things can help offset some of that. But so the advice there is to limit time on your feet and prioritize recovery. Check out the course. I always advise this for races. We don't want any surprises on race day, and I would say that is especially true for this race. And we'll talk a little bit more. This is primarily going to be the bike course, and it's primarily a relatively short section of the bike course that really is what you need to be aware of. You need to be familiar with. So I would definitely recommend going and putting eyes on the entire bike course, but specifically that section headed up to the Blue Ridge Parkway. Simply because it is quite technical, both on the ascent as well as the descent. I would not advise seeing that or experiencing that for the first time on race day. So go and drive the course there. It's a beautiful drive, which maybe take in the scenery before the race so that you can concentrate on your cycling and not be quite as distracted by all the beauty around you. But definitely go and put eyes on the course. Same thing, you can go down there and check out the swim course. I'm not exactly sure how much access you will have with everything going on, setting up transition, but you can at least get close to the lake, see it. It's a beautiful lake. And then the run course is it's a great opportunity to go see it, go and maybe get in a shakeout run on a section of the course. It's there's not a whole lot to it. It's not particularly technical. We'll be talking about that as well. It's primarily all along a path right there through town. So still a good idea to go see it, experience it, see transition, maybe even do a walkthrough transition to just to get a feel for what you're going to experience on a race day. And then be sure to read the athlete guide. This is always a good idea, but especially given some of these unique caveats for this race, primarily around the multiple transitions as well as the things required to do in the days leading into the race that you likely haven't done if you've raced other 70.3s. All right, race morning. Just as a reminder, there is no access to T2 on race morning. So, day before, you will have dropped that run gear bag off. So, once you drop that off the day before the race, that's it. So, make sure that you've got everything in there that you want to go in there. That's going to include your nutrition and all that. A lot of times at these races, you will have access to those bags. You can drop off nutrition in those on race morning. That is not the case here for this race. So be aware of that. Check the athlete guide for the prepaid parking locations. I believe it's just $5. There are several locations there in the area. So keep in mind that everyone is going to be parking down there in that area. So it actually is quite nice. It makes it easy. The money goes to charities in the area, I believe. So it's for a good cause. Those open very early at 3 a.m. So lots of opportunities to head down there, get parked, and get everything ready on race morning. Keep in mind, you do have to hop on that shuttle and head over to the lake. You will bring your bike gear and morning clothes bags with you on race morning. So again, you've dropped off your run gear in the days leading into this race morning. Your bike will already be down there, but you're going to bring that bike gear bag that's going to have again your cycling shoes, your helmet, your bike computer, nutrition, all those kinds of things. Bring that with you along with that morning clothes bag. So that morning clothes bag. Is probably going to be empty at this point. Maybe you're using it just to carry some stuff, but the intent of that morning clothes bag is for you to allow you to wear something other than just your race kit. Maybe you're carrying your wetsuit, something like that, in that bag, and then you can drop that off down there at the swim start, and those clothes, flip flops, whatever it is, will be returned to you after the race. It is athlete only on those shuttle from the River's Edge Park. Those start at 3:15, so there's going to be running very, very early, allowing plenty of time to get down there, get everything set up, make sure everyone has plenty of time to be shuttled from the finish line T2 area down there to the swim start. No vehicles are allowed at the swim start, so you can't drive yourself down there. You can't even have a member of your support crew take you down there, Uber, anything like that. They're not allowing any vehicles down there at the swim start, which means no spectators down there. As mentioned, it's a very small plot there where transition is set up. There's just not any room down there. But they will be broadcasting both the swim and bike at the Ironman Village. So really cool opportunity for your support crew to go out and watch it kind of in real time, get that professional treatment. All right, headed out to the swim course. As mentioned, it is a beautiful lake surrounded by some beautiful hills. I would say this is quite likely one of the most beautiful swim courses out there on the Ironman circuit. So really enjoy it. Down there at the swim start, the water temperature will be announced on race morning. It'll also be announced in those days leading into the race, which will get you an idea. But I've seen temperature swings 2, 3, 4 degrees even on that last day. So over the last several years, it has been wetsuit legal every time, but it has always been relatively close. It was very, very close last year. It was measured at exactly 76 degrees. So it is wetsuit legal up to and including 76.1 degrees. So there was a tenth of a degree wiggle room last year, but very, very close to being what was referred to as wetsuit optional. Excuse me. In 21, the lake was 73 degrees. In 2019, it was 74 degrees. So again, pretty consistent in the low to mid 70s. So we would expect that again, wetsuit legal up to and including 76.1 degrees. 76.2 and above, it becomes wetsuit optional. You can still wear the wetsuit, but you are not eligible for awards or world championship slots, and you will start after all of those not wearing a wetsuit have started the race. The race starts at 6:30, so again, that's 3 hours after those shuttles start going, so plenty of time to get down there and get all set up. It is a self-seated rolling start, which means that you will queue up according to your expected swim time. And once it is your turn, you will jump from the dock and head off towards the finish line. So, a couple tips for the swim start: get cued early. So, part of that is going to mean getting on one of those earlier shuttles. So, I know that sleep is precious, but chances are you're not sleeping real well the night before the race anyway. My personal preference, my advice would be to head down there early. Again, a couple extra things to do in this race, especially if maybe you're comfortable and done lots of 70.3s before, but you've done that more traditional one transition location that's easier and quicker to set up. No time spent on a shuttle bus. Keep that in mind. So my recommendation would be to get down there early, err on the side of caution, and then get in that queue early on. Simply because, especially with the very confined space down there at this swim start, if you're trying to get in later and it's already crowded, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get to your expected swim time, which means you could be starting later than planned, and starting with swimmers that are slower than you, which can cause some problems. Don't queue slower than expected. So I've been guilty of this. I've been, as I mentioned, either running behind and not been able to get up to my actual position, or maybe I was just hanging back with a friend. I've done that before, and there's certainly value in that. But what I've learned over the years is that it's much more advantageous for you to actually be up there where you are expected. So don't queue slower than you're expecting. You know, maybe it's you're a little nervous or anything like that. So I'm gonna hang back. That is actually just going to cause some additional problems. Get up there with those swimmers that are going to be swimming the same pace as you. It's going to provide for less contact, less people swimming over you, you having to swim over fewer people. So do your best to queue as accurately as possible to your expected swim time. Don't panic. Now, I understand this is easier said than done. Obviously, this isn't anything that you have control over, but these are some things that we can work on. So hopefully, the fact that the water is expected to be relatively warm will help with that. A lot of times, when we hit that cold water, it triggers that fight or flight response, especially when that water is like in the 60s. I mean, it feels cold. That said, jumping in on the morning, it may feel cold enough and still trigger that. You're obviously going to be excited for the race. There's going to be some nerves, some adrenaline, all that can combine to hit that water and trigger that same fight or flight response. So do what you can in this case. Know that there are lots of safety vessels out there. There are boats and kayaks and stand-up paddle boards and all sorts of things there to keep you safe. You're not that far from the shore, so worst case you could get over there. But if you do begin to experience that, collect yourself, do what you can to catch your breath, signal for someone, just raise your hand and they'll come get you. You can hang on to a one of those vessels as long as you need to. So just because you grab onto one of those vessels, you're not disqualified or anything like that. You just can't move forward while hanging on to one of those vessels. So just a couple other things you can do is just settle in. Again, get comfortable. Remind yourself that you're okay in that water, and then get in some sink downs. So a sink down is kind of what it sounds like. You just go underwater, exhale, come back up. It's going to be real difficult to do if you're wearing a wetsuit, which is a good reminder of how that wetsuit is going to keep you up on the surface of the water. So do what you need to do, and then get off for this incredible swim. So, swim course, very straightforward. It is a clockwise direction in protected water. Good water clarity, so this water is quite clean, quite clear. Great to see. It's as I mentioned, it's a really neat, really special swim venue. This is the only day out of the year that swimming is allowed here. So you guys are in for a special treat. So that's just kind of a reminder that you cannot come down and swim in the days leading into the race. So again, it is race day only. Sunrise to the east, as always. So that is going to be either to your right or to your left, depending on which way you breathe, and depending on whether you're going to have that on the way out or the way back. So obviously, this is a north-south general direction. So again, you're going to have that sunrise in your eyes at some point, kind of depending on which way you're going and which way you breathe. If you're a bilateral breather, you're going to get it both ways. If you breathe to the right, you'll have it on the way out. If you breathe to the left, you'll have it on the way back. So just make sure that you're taking that into consideration when selecting your goggles. And then sight on the buoys and the shore. The shore is a little bit jagged, so not always the best reference, but this course does take up the majority of the space. So you're not that far from shore, so it can be a good secondary reference as you're turning to breathe. Just making sure you're maintaining a good distance from where you are to that shoreline, but you'll need to rely primarily on the buoys for sighting. And then there's also some opportunities to sight off the horizon. As mentioned before, there are hills and that sort of thing that can also provide some good sighting for you. All right, a couple of tips for the swim course. As already discussed, consider the sunrise when choosing your goggles. Break the course into segments. So this is always how I approach a long course race. It's eating the elephant one bite at a time. If you think about racing 70.3 miles or even swimming 1.2 miles at a time, it can be a bit daunting. So for me, oftentimes it's turn buoy to turn buoy, or sometimes it's even as short as buoy to buoy, kind of depending on the day. So here, obviously, there's two main segments to this course, and that is that northern and then southern direction. But you can even approach it turn buoy to turn buoy, as I said there. So you'll start off kind of swim across the lake. It's a relatively short section there, which is a good just kind of feeling, get settled in that initial stretch. and then you're in for the longer stretch before the second turn buoy, little break between the second and third, and then that last long stretch as you're coming home. So sight often. The best way to extend your swim time is to swim additional yardage by swimming crooked. Best thing to do to produce your fastest swim time is to swim as few yards as possible, which means swimming as straight as possible. So that is achieved through sighting as often as necessary to maintain those good straight sight lines. Find your comfortable pace, and then at the end, keep swimming until you touch the ramp. You'll have been out there for a while. You're probably tired of swimming. You're ready to be done. You begin to see transition. What you'll see a lot of times is people will begin to stand up. It is going to be much easier. You're much more efficient swimming through the water than trying to run or even walk through that water. So take just a few more seconds, a few more strokes, and swim all the way until your hand touches that boat ramp. So the exit is on a boat ramp, and so just keep swimming until you touch, and then that will be your indication as to when it is time to go ahead and stand up and head into transition. Really enjoy this swim. As I mentioned before, it is a beautiful swim venue. It is unique, one of the nicest out there on the circuit. So really enjoy your time there on the swim. All right. So as mentioned, the transition area is quite small, so it's going to be a lot of stuff packed in here. The swim start is over off of this side. The swim exit, you'll be coming in from here, entering into transition. It is going to be critical to know your location, as with this packed in quite tightly. It may be a little bit more difficult to find your bikes. There's going to be a lot of bikes in this space. So what you don't want to do is find or have issues, find difficulty finding your bike. So again, a little different here in this race. Typically, you will have gone and racked your own bike the day before the race. So you would know exactly where it is. Keep in mind, when you head down there to the lake, it's going to be very early. It's going to be dark, and you're going to have to find your bike. It's going to be seeing your bike on the rack for the first time. So take just a minute to notice those landmarks that are around, whatever it is that can help you identify where your bike is, which rack it's on, how many racks you go past as you come to the swim exit. Be careful to pay particular attention to that. Get a walkthrough of transition just so you know what it is that you're going to be experiencing once the race begins. Be efficient. So this means limiting the amount of things that you have to do and the things that you do in order to do them. So keep your area nice and clean. Now this is again going to be a little different because you're going to have your gear in those bags. So maybe run through that a couple times. So pack minimally and practice in advance. Know that this is going to be again a little different. Instead of having all your gear spread out there on the ground, you'll have your gear here in those bags. So practice that. Consider a go bottle. So this is a great tip I received years ago, and I've kind of made it my own and implemented in my own racing, and I always advise it to others. So you've been in that water for probably somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes. And you've gone through some hydration, gone through some nutrition during that time without the opportunity to take in any. Hopefully, you haven't swallowed too much water. So as you hop on that bike, it's you're going to be a little bit behind on nutrition and hydration. So a go bottle is just a bottle waiting there in transition. For me, my T1 bottle has about 8 ounces of water in it, and it has a serving of my nutrition. It has a serving of my electrolytes. So as I'm throwing on my helmet and getting ready to head out on the bike, I will just drink that real quick. It takes just a few seconds to get that down, and it's going to prime, get me started on my my nutrition, my hydration, my electrolyte, my cooling protocol. All those things are achieved in that go bottle. So just taking a quick hit of that and getting started with hydration, nutrition, electrolytes, and cooling. So that's what a go bottle is. And then just be aware that as you head out of T1 here, there is a hill early on. It's not one of the bigger ones, but it is something to be aware of. again, if you have the opportunity to go down and put eyes on that in the days leading into the race, again, I'm not exactly sure if you'll be able to access that hill, kind of depending on how they're regulating access to the swim start transition area. But I would advise at least going to attempt to check out the transition area as well as that hill that you're going to experience upon exiting T1. All right, time to head out onto the bike course. This is really what makes this race special. I say that it's a beautiful swim, it's a great run, but I would say kind of the number one feature is this bike course, and I would say this is definitely the most challenging aspect of it, and probably even the reason why you are here racing. So, bike course generally good roads. This is great. The Blue Ridge Parkway is close to traffic on race day, so not having to worry about sharing the road with vehicles. Um, there are sections that are very technical, so not the entire course, but again, very specific sections of the course, and primarily that has to do with ascending and descending. So hopefully, this is something that you've had the opportunity to get some practice on, that you're comfortable, because you will have some quite slow speeds going up, and you will achieve some very fast speeds coming down. So make sure that you are comfortable with that, that you are aware that that's going to be happening. Don't be caught off guard. Don't endanger yourself or those cyclists around you. So, kind of a almost a tale of two bike courses here. So miles 0 through 23, there's about 600 feet of gain. So 23 miles stretch with 600 feet of gain, that is relatively flat. We wouldn't call that a hilly course. Then I'm going to skip forward a little bit here. Miles 31 through 56, 400 feet of gain. So basically, what we have there is about 48 miles total, with about 1,000 feet of gain. So 1,000 feet of gain over 48 miles, we generally consider that flat. Now we do have this speed bump there in the middle. This is miles 23 through 31, where there is double that amount of elevation gain. So again, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 48 miles, has 1,000 feet of gain, 8 miles has 2,000 feet of gain. So this is the ascent up to the top of the Blue Ridge Parkway. And then once you reach the Blue Ridge Parkway up there, there's a little bit more climbing. But the good news is what goes up comes back down. So as I mentioned, there will be some slow speeds going up, and there will be some smoking fast speeds coming back down. There are four notable climbs out there on the course. The first climb, as mentioned, is relatively soon out of transition. It is a half-mile long with an average grade of 2.8%. Now, anytime you get really above 1-2%, this is where you're really starting to feel it. As you get closer to 3%, that's a pretty good climb. So, if you're using Zwift or anything like that, that's showing you real time the grade that you're on, you'll know that you begin to see a pretty good slowdown in speed, even at 2 to 3%. So a half mile of that early on. Climb 2. This is the big one. This is this is what we're in for. This is the claw. It's 5.5 miles long with an average grade of 5.5%. That is legit. So again, be very aware of that. Again, it's going to start somewhere up in this area around mile 23. So relatively flat coming out of transition. But then shortly before making this right turn, this is where the climbing is going to begin. You can even see just geographically here, this is the ridge. So we're coming down from the flatlands, headed up to the top of the ridge. So it obviously makes sense. You're effectively climbing a mountain up here on the bike. So this is where that 5.5 mile stretch, which starts here and begins to taper off somewhat once you've kind of made that you turn through. But it's 5.5 miles of 5.5% grade. So as I mentioned, you're going to begin to feel a pretty substantial slowdown, anywhere from 2 to 3%. What we have here is an average of 5.5%. So this is a very legit climb, and there are obviously sections of this 5.5 miles that are going to be steeper than 5.5%. So again, go out there, see what this is, get a feel for it. Climb 3 is shortly after you've kind of made that peak. There's another section, 2.3 miles long, with an average of 2.5%. So half the distance and half the grade of what you just did, but By now, your legs are going to be sore, your lungs are going to be burning. So just be aware that that's there. And then the fourth is a mile and a half, 2.6%. That is going to be kind of right before you begin that descent back down, back down to almost what we call sea level. So again, four major climbs out there. Go put eyes on them, see exactly what those are. But do know, obviously, that climb to 5.5 miles at the average of 5.5%. That is kind of the issue on this course. This is what's going to make this course difficult, makes it memorable, makes it braggable. So just make sure that you are aware of what you are in store for out on this beautiful bike course. Couple tips for this beautiful bike course. As mentioned, be familiar with the course. Don't be caught off guard. Don't think, oh, I know what I'm in store for. I ride like this at home, or others are like, I just don't want to know. I want to go and experience it for the first time on race day. I think that's a bit of a mistake. I think you're better off being able to strategize and know exactly what you're in store for as you head in there. So part of this, and this is especially there on that 5.5 mile climb, go and either track your mileage or have landmarks. So personally, that's what would get me through it. So as I mentioned before, is eating that elephant one bite at a time. This 5.5 mile stretch up the claw is an elephant that is going to have to be eaten one bite at a time. So that is what's going to help. If you think about doing 5.5 miles at 5.5%, that's going to be very difficult for me. It would be mentally. So my recommendation here is to pay attention to those mile markers, know what you've achieved, know how far you have to go, and then find those landmarks along the way that you can say, yeah, I'm about halfway now. I'm on the back half. And just, I've got a mile to go, or I'm almost there. I can see this. Be aware of things like false summits that make you feel like you're there, but then you get there and you realize you got to keep going. The more familiar you are with that stretch, the better off you're going to be able to handle it. Have proper gearing. So, again, with these grades, with these links, you are going to need to have the proper gearing. So, make sure that you don't have your flat time trial cassette on here. Just make sure that you have the proper gear to successfully navigate those climbs. Stay ahead on hydration and nutrition. So keep in mind that especially during that 5.5 mile climb, it is going to be difficult to take in nutrition and hydration. That 5.5 mile stretch is going to take you longer than it normally will. So if someone says 5.5 miles, I know for me, I would calculate sometime around 15 minutes or so for that stretch. It's going to take significantly longer than 15 minutes. So I need to account for that as I'm heading in. So especially on this stretch heading into this, make sure that in this first 20 miles or so that you're getting ahead of your hydration and nutrition, because again, it's going to be difficult, if not dangerous, to drink and eat while you're climbing that portion. Same thing on the descent. It's probably not the safest thing to go for a bottle when you're going downhill at, who knows, 40, 50 plus miles per hour, screaming back down that hill. So take that into consideration when you're planning out your nutrition and your hydration, because we definitely don't want to get behind on those. But also it's important to be aware that there are times when it is going to be more difficult for you to consume the hydration and nutrition. So fuel strategically. Be prepared for the climbs. Again, a lot of this has to do with having the right gear, having the right mindset, having the knowledge necessary. So, and also as they come up, you don't want to be caught off guard. So be prepared for those climbs and then recover on the descents. So obviously your heart rate is going to spike, your legs are going to be screaming, your lungs are going to be burning, especially on the longer ones. These are a couple miles long. So take advantage of what goes up must come down. Gravity is your friend there. I would not say it's kind of a catch 22. Do I advise trying to make up some of that time and really pushing on those downhills? I would say for most, probably not. The gravity is going to be a great assist. You're going to be going fast enough on that downhill. You don't really need to continue to expend energy to gain that speed. but more likely it's going to be good just to have kind of a nice light spin out. Allow your heart rate to come down, allow your breathing to catch up, and just that nice light spin is going to kind of flush out the legs and prepare them for the next stretch. So I would say take advantage of those downhills. Again, it's a little bit different, kind of based on your ambitions and what you're looking to do in this race. But I would say for the vast majority of athletes, just kind of take it easy on those downhills. Again, you're going to be going fast enough, so just take the advantage of gravity doing the work for you. Speaking of going downhill really fast, it is critical to communicate with your fellow cyclist out there. Um, Make sure that you are staying to the right, passing on the left. Again, this is going to be perhaps speeds that you've never even done on a bike before, or rarely done. Others may be very, very comfortable with these very fast descents, especially those that perhaps live in the area. And these are the roads they ride on a regular basis. They're used to this. They do it every weekend. Others, again, maybe going downhill, exceeding 30 miles an hour for the first time ever, and completely terrified. So again, stay to the right. And then if you are going to pass on the left, and be sure to communicate with those athletes, those other cyclists that you are passing. So that's always the courteous thing to do, is to give that on your left as you are approaching, but especially as you're going through these technical descents, it is critical and courteous to communicate. Enjoy the beauty, be the beast. So as mentioned, it is definitely a gorgeous bike course, some gorgeous scenery, but you are strong enough. You will be successful in this. I have no doubt of that. I've talked it up a lot, and yeah, I mean it is something legit. It is a technical, difficult course, but I am confident in your ability. So don't be overly intimidated or worried. Be diligent, and just know that you are stronger. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be quite memorable. And then in the end of the course, as you're in those last few miles headed into town, begin to prep for T2 and the run. So kind of spin out the legs, get that cadence, bike cadence starting to match what your run cadence is going to be. So for most, it's advised to run around that 90 steps per minute. So match that on the bike with that 90 cadence, and when you come off, your legs are going to know what to do. Also kind of spin them out. You've used some big muscles. You've done some, the equivalent of a bunch of squats with heavy weight. So just allow those legs to spin out, flush out, and lighten up for the run that is to come. So you will head into T2. Again, a little bit different, new location, different than where we started in transition one. There you will find your run gear bag waiting for you at the rack. So this again is going to have your running shoes, cap, visor, fuel belt, race number belt, all those things in it. So you will transition there. So my tips for transition two are exactly the same as transition one. Be efficient, pack minimally. One, that bag is going to require you to pack minimally because you can only have what you can fit in that bag. Practice in advance and consider that go bottle. The one thing I do differently in my go bottle for T2 is I'll have more about 12 ounces of water in there. Same thing with a full dose of nutrition and electrolytes. And I didn't mention this for T1, but your standard normal water bottle has a relatively small, maybe dime size mouth on it, which will kind of restrict the rate of the water coming out of that bottle. We're looking to be able to drink from these quickly. So I like the bottles with a big mouth on it. I use Vitamin Water Zero in the days leading into the race. That's just kind of my personal go-to. And so I will save two of those bottles that I've drank in the days leading into the race. And those have those big, I don't know, $50, silver dollar size mouse on them, which, even that 6 to 8 ounces or the 12 ounces in T2 can drink that quite quickly. So just take that into consideration. So with T2, a little bit more fluid in there. simply because I'm that much further into the race, that much more opportunity to be behind on hydration, nutrition, electrolytes. And I also have the opportunity now to take that bottle with me. So I don't have a cage or anything like that for that bottle on the bike. So it's basically how much can I get in T2. My stomach may also be a little bit off coming into T2. So I have that bigger bottle and I take it with me. So sometimes if I'm feeling great, I can just chug it down and dump the bottle in transition. But most times it actually goes with me out, and I'll kind of nurse that bottle through the first aid station or however long it takes me to comfortably get all of that down. But again, it's just a great opportunity to get ahead of the curve so far as the hydration, nutrition, and electrolytes, as well as cooling go. All right, headed out onto the run course. It is a one loop run, which consists of two out and back sections. So, what I mean by that is transition is kind of here in the middle. It starts with an out and back this way, U turning back, come back by transition, tease you a little bit by getting real close to the finish line. And then you'll have this little bit longer out and back section this way and back. So out and back to the east, out and back to call it the west, and then to the finish. So two out and back sections. It is mostly exposed to the sun. So keep that in mind. I've mentioned the cooling protocol before. The more exposed to the sun, the warmer the temperature, the higher the humidity. All those are going to make it imperative that you stay up on, especially your nutrition as well as your cooling protocols. So make sure that you are taking the opportunity to get cold water when you can. I always advise taking ice and that sort of thing to stay cool. It is almost exclusively on the Roanoke River Greenway. So again, nice thing here is not having to worry about vehicular traffic or anything like that. Nice path right there along the river, kind of running through the outskirts of downtown Roanoke. So nice and scenic. It's nice and pretty, and again relatively flat. Um, with the exception of one hill late in the course. And given that it is an out and back, you will hit that twice. So you kind of see here from the elevation chart. First couple miles as you head out this first out and back to the east, relatively flat. A little bit of elevations really starts once you begin to come back past the park and then head up into the more western. So that's going to be this section here, a little bit net uphill, and it is going to peak at this highest point here. This is kind of the section where the path actually gets out on the road for just a minute and then reconnects over to the path. So it's almost 9 miles in, or about mile 9. When you hit that highest point there, and that's actually coming back up to the road from the river level. You'll go and do a little bit more out and back, and then you'll have to come up to that point again. So that's what we're showing here, is actually hitting that high point twice late in the run. Almost mile 11 is the second time you'll hit that. The good news is you will have a nice, fast, hopefully easy descent back down to those last about 2.5 miles net downhill that will carry you to the finish line. All right, a couple tips for the run course. As mentioned, I keep coming back to this eating the elephant one bite at a time. We have this 13.1 mile elephant. So my recommendation here is to break it down into 4 segments. First would be this first out and back. So section 1 is to the U-turn. Section 2 is going to be back to the transition area. Section 3 would be from the park to the next U-turn, and then fourth would be back. Now, as mentioned before, this second section, which would kind of be like the third leg that I'm speaking of, is going to be a net uphill. So pace is a great metric to use to gauge this building, and we can even start off with a relatively easy pace as we head east to the first U-turn, a little bit faster pace as we make that U-turn and head back. But then keep in mind, section 3 is going to be a net uphill. So maybe it's even maintaining pace. You may even have a little bit slower pace here, just kind of depending on how well you handle the hills. And so it's going to be kind of defaulting back to perceived effort. Or if you have a run power meter, you can obviously rely on that run power to help your pacing. And then once you make that U-turn, again, the first little mile or so is going to have that uphill with that highest point, and then 2.5 miles back down. So really take advantage of that. Again, what goes up comes down, so you'll have that gravity assist, and those last 2.5 miles hopefully be nice and fast, taking advantage of the fact that you have that net downhill, but also you have really paced strategically. You've nailed your nutrition, your hydration, all that. So speaking of, it is critical to stay hydrated. By now, the temperature is going to be close to the high of the day. Again, the course is largely exposed to the sun, so kind of depending on cloud cover and that sort of thing, the temperature could be quite warm. So you're going to be sweating quite a bit at this point, and will have been sweating for several hours. So it is critical that you stay hydrated, but also stay cool. And these are somewhat correlated. It's really impossible to stay cool once you have reached that state of dehydration. Your body is using that fluid to help cool itself. So not only is your hydration critical, but also those cooling protocols. So as I mentioned before, this is going to include using things like ice and cold water, both from the outside to cool the outside of the body, as well as consuming those to cool the body from the inside. Once that core temperature begins to rise at a certain point, your performance is going to be drastically impacted by that. Once you begin to overheat, your body is going to protect itself by limiting your performance. Again, it's nothing personal, not trying to limit your performance, but it's also trying to keep you from doing any damage to your body, keeping you healthy and keeping you safe. So make sure that you are prioritizing those cooling protocols and not getting overheated. And along those same lines, I always recommend taking something from every aid station. So, kind of depending on what your nutrition and hydration protocol is, you may just need to take something from every aid station to keep up with that. But for me, my kind of default nutrition strategy for a 70.3 or Ironman distance race is I take a gel at every other aid station. I'm sure to take a cup of cold water along with that to help rinse down that gel and help get it dissolved and going, but also take advantage of that cold water to cool my body from the inside. On a hot, warm race, not even hot, just warm, I'm also taking ice and cold water at every opportunity, pouring that over my body, shoving the ice anywhere I can, under my cap, down my kit, down my shorts. Again, really prioritizing keeping my body cool so that it continue to perform. So that's why I say take something from every aid station, whether you eat it, drink it, shove it down your kit, take something from every aid station. You paid a nice, healthy entry fee, so get your money's worth by taking something from every aid station, and make sure that you're planning out your aid stations. A lot of times what we see is athletes will kind of haphazardly approach an aid station and kind of almost go shopping. You know, what do I want? What do I feel like? That's going to slow you down. That's also going to cause some not great decisions. So as you are approaching those aid stations, know what it is that you're going to take. So take something, know what it is as you're approaching those aid stations, and then enjoy the scenery. As mentioned, kind of started out there in the hills and the mountains and that beautiful lake, very isolated, very remote. Took that beautiful bike course through some very beautiful, very scenic, but also kind of remote. And then here we headed back into downtown Roanoke, and it really becomes a really unique, different environment. So also, I'll say it's beautiful, kind of in a different way. But certainly a really unique swim, bike, and run course. So make sure that you enjoy those. And above all, enjoy the finish. Obviously, the finish is quite special. Nothing quite like it. So a couple tips here: clean up. That means wipe your nose, wipe the blood, sweat, and tears away. zip up the kit, ditch any sponges or towels you may have shoved in your kit, because this is where the photographer is going to be waiting for you. This is going to be your Instagram profile pic for the next couple of years. So clean up and then take it all in. At this point, you've been out there for several hours. You've worked very hard. Make sure to take this in and don't rush it away. This is what's going to bring you back. This is what you're going to remember. So plan your finish. Is it dancing down there? Whatever it is that you want to do, kind of like heading into those aid stations, know what your finish line experience is going to be. Find some space. So you've done this on your own mostly throughout the race day. So finish by yourself and take advantage of that red carpet. Now, if there's somebody you've been, ran the last 12 miles with or something, yeah, maybe super cool to head down that red carpet with them. But otherwise, maybe it's just being a little strategic, speed up, slow down, just so that you can enjoy that by yourself. No one wants their awesome finish line pose blocked by someone who's finishing like 1 second ahead of them. So just kind of be aware of that. And then my recommendation here, take it for what it's worth, get all the high fives. Lots of kids, lots of spectators, perhaps family, friends there waiting on the sidelines with their hands out. For me, that's always a fun part of it. Sure, I may lose a second or two slowing down to give a kid a high five, but for me, that is always well worth it. All right, that is what I've got. I'm going to head into the questions now. I've got less than 10 minutes left. And again, I want to respect your time. So I will get to as many as I can. Feel free to continue to use that GoToWebinar widget there, submit your questions. And again, if I don't get to them in the next few minutes here, I will respond to you via email. My email address is there on the screen, john@tribetriathlon.net. Feel free to reach out with any questions that you have. All right, question one: do I need special gearing? It kind of depends on what your definition of special is. And I would say that you do need the appropriate gearing. And it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. Everyone kind of has a different setup, different body weights, and all that kind of stuff. So if you don't have confidence in the gearing that you currently have, or if you have questions on it, my recommendation would be to have that conversation either with your coach, with a knowledgeable bike person. Maybe it's someone at your local bike shop. Say, hey, I'm going to go and I've got these climbs. I've got a climb that's 5.5 miles, an average of 5.5% grade. What gearing do I need? And make sure that you have that. So I don't know if we would consider that special gearing. For me, I live in the flatlands. I run a pretty aggressive 1223 cassette. I would not want to use that here. I would want something a little bit bigger just for those climbs. So for me, I would be changing out my cassette from what I normally default race in most races. And I would say that whereas I would not necessarily say this is an issue in most races. For this race, yes, it is critical to pay attention. As I mentioned that before, ensuring that you've got the proper gearing, and it may even have to do with your front rings, kind of depending on how aggressive your bike is set up. So either go over that yourself, and if you don't feel qualified or knowledgeable enough, get some help on it. So I think there's even some websites that can make some recommendations, but I would say your local bike shop is a great resource as well, and then they can also help you out. They can sell you that cassette, they can install the front rings, whatever is necessary. What if I get a flat? So Ironman does provide neutral support. There will be some vehicles out there roving, providing support if you do get a flat. But especially on a point-to-point course such as this, you never really know where that neutral support is going to be or how long it's going to take to get to you. So always recommend being self-sufficient with that. Know how to change your own tire. Again, that's something that your local bike shop is likely very willing to help teach you if you're not already. I would hope at this point that everyone who's training for 70.3 or longer race is knowledgeable in changing a flat. That's kind of like 101 type stuff. So if you're not, definitely recommend going and learning that. Be self-sufficient so far as the flats go. But kind of brings up another issue that I like to talk about is hopefully it's not a flat. but um, always expect something to pop up unexpectedly. Oftentimes things will go wrong on race day. So, kind of my rule of thumb, it's kind of joking, kind of not, is expect three things to go wrong on race day. Hopefully they're minor, but I've been racing for a lot of years. I've coached a lot of athletes, and it is very, very rare that everything goes 100% smooth, completely according to plan. You're out there for a long time. You're racing over 70 miles, swimming, cycling, running. Something is going to happen, something unexpected. So remain positive and remain flexible. So once you encounter that issue, just deal with it and proceed as best you can. Any secret tips? Kind of that. Yeah, remain positive, remain flexible. My other would be to race with gratitude and a grateful heart. So something that I always do as often as possible, especially on the bike, going through some of those closed intersections. There'll be police officers. I'm always I pay particular attention to thank those officers. So it's something I do for them. It expresses my gratitude. Hopefully, it makes them feel good. But honestly, it makes me feel good too. So it gives me a little bit of that positive boost. And I think another great tip is to express your gratitude to your support crew in the days leading into the race. So those are the folks that you're going to think of when the race gets hard, when you're grinding up the claw. How am I going to get up here? What's going to keep you moving? You're going to think about your kids, your family, your support crew, and just the knowledge that you've expressed some gratitude to them. Thank them for the role that they played in getting you to this place is going to be some great fuel for you. How do we get our swim gear back? So this is going to be kind of like if you've raced an Ironman race, where in that transition area, again, you're going to have your bike gear bag there waiting for you. You're going to take everything out of that bike gear bag. That's going to be, again, helmet, cycling shoes, sunglasses, whatever else. You're going to then repack your swim gear into that bike gear bag and then leave it there at the rack. So your wetsuit / swim skin, cap, goggles, whatever else came out of the water that's not going with you on the bike. You will repack that into that bike gear bag. They will then collect all those bags, return them to the finish line. So you'll get your swim gear in your bike gear bag and your morning clothes bag. Those will be transported again from T1 / swim start area to the finish line after the race. If we check in Friday, do we have to drop our bikes off on Friday? So I'm actually not completely sure on this one. The schedule / athlete guide seems to indicate that it says bike check-in is at or after check-in. So it seems to indicate that you'll check in, you'll get your stickers, you'll throw those stickers on your bike, and then leave your bike there. I think that is certainly an option. I don't know if that is a requirement. So I would say be sure to maybe find that out once you arrive on site, and maybe even plan your check-in time accordingly. I usually advocate for an early check-in just to get that out of the way so that you can do all those kinds of things, like getting your decals on your bike with plenty of time and not have to stress over it. But if you do actually have to drop your bike at the time of check-in, that may be the one case where I may even wait till like Saturday morning to do that, just so that I can have my bike a little bit longer. It's less time my bike is sitting out there exposed to the elements. So I would say that would be the one case. But I would say ideally, my preference would be to be able to check in early and then be able to check in my bike on Saturday, the day before the race. But I would say clarify that. If I'm able to get some clarification, I'll pass that along. All right. Again, coming up on time, I want to be respectful of your time, and it's probably a good idea that you head off to bed. Sleep is critical over these next few days, so that's going to be kind of my last tip that I'll leave you with: is prioritize sleep. Recovery and adaptation happens overnight while you're sleeping. So hopefully this has been beneficial for you. I hope you've perhaps learned something. I hope this can help contribute to you having a fantastic, enjoyable, successful day there in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So again, thank you for your time this evening. Wish you all the best.